All right, Becky, what is going on? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on tonight.
I was thinking about it, and we were talking about it before. I have to post the old episode that we did, and I probably have to listen to it too, just to see where things have changed and maybe what hasn't changed. But that was probably 4 episodes on our other show. But would love for if you could just kind of catch us up, maybe what's maybe changed over the last few years. But then our typical starter question is just, what is your business, and then what is your role in the business? But maybe if you give us a little refresher for the last few years for people that are tracking.
Sure. I was going to say probably last time we spoke 4 years ago on that podcast, more was still earlier on in my own real estate portfolio. I can't even remember how many properties I would have had, probably closer to like 11, something in that. Most of my portfolio still was in New York at that point in time. It still is. I still am very heavy within New York City, Westchester County, Hudson Valley, those spaces. But then since that point in time, we've actually expanded our real estate business more into the Dominican Republic. I also now live there full-time, full-time half the year, if that counts. But I get to normally be there throughout I finally solidified and got my husband to agree that being there for the couple months out of the year is something that we will do consistently. So very happy about that. And then I spend a couple months in Europe every summer as well. So very happy to get that surrounded. I think back then I had just started Lady Landlords, which is a community that we have for other female investors. And that has now grown. We have over 50,000 members and have really expanded into an educational space within that. And that actually probably takes up more of my time than real estate investing. But we've gotten to that point within our own portfolio that we kind of feel comfortable where those numbers are. I've also completely left cancer research, and I've been a full-time investor for about 2 years now.
Wow. Okay, a ton has changed. Just context, I guess, to round it out. You said the community is 50,000. You also help people, I think, beyond that, like maybe in group or one-on-one. Could you just maybe high level talk about what the portfolio looks like right now, and then also touch on the community a little bit beyond the Facebook group?
Sure. So my portfolio is mostly small multifamily properties, once again, throughout the New York urban areas, and then also in the Dominican Republic. I have long-term rentals, short-term rentals, mid-term rentals, kind of everything over the gamut there. My goal was always cash flow. I wanted to be able to replace my income. I wanted to be able to replace my husband's income. So we currently have 16 rental properties, bringing a little over $20,000 in profit every single month from those rental properties. To me, lifestyle was really the key. I wasn't really looking for, not totally focused on planning my retirement or anything like that, but what can I do today to really make a difference in my life and my value? Retiring by the age of 40 was incredibly important to me. Retiring my husband also by that period of time was incredibly important on that side as well. Then Lady Landlords, really our group started growing. It came out of the pandemic. I remember my husband actually lost his job, as so many other people did, in March 2020. He kind of comes home. He's like, I don't know what we're going to do. We lost an income stream. And I was just like, we're going to buy more rental property. And he's like, no. I lost my job. We don't have that money. And I was like, babe, we've already replaced your income. It doesn't matter if you work or not. Congratulations. And I said, I'm sorry, but corporate America was not here to take care of us, and they're definitely not going to now. So we're going to move more into rental properties. He just kind of was like, nope, that's a crazy idea. I have no idea, lady, what you're talking about. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go find other people that feel the same way as me on the internet. Started a Facebook group called Lady Landlords, and we just had women joining us in droves, and then started to get questions. How do I get started? How do I grow? How do I scale? So we started our own podcast called Lady Landlords as well, and then just really expanded out into either networking events, retreats, a mentorship program. We do group investments, kind of anything that people are looking for. I like building out, and now being retired gives me the creative space, time, ability to really do those things.
So awesome. Something that I get asked a lot is about managing a portfolio living out of state or even out of country. So would love to just hear how you think about it, and then high level, and then if we could dig into like systems, ops, people, that sort of stuff. But just if you have a methodology or thought to touch on to start.
Sure. My methodology is, you see that thing in your hand, in your pocket right now, or what you're possibly listening to this podcast, this will solve every single one of your problems, right? We have 16 properties across 2 countries. We self-manage. When we live in New York for half the year, we self-manage down in the Dominican Republic. When we're in the Dominican Republic, we self-manage in New York. Probably takes me about 4 hours a month to be able to manage my properties. Honestly, I've done rehabs from the Maldives in an over-the-water hut. I've done flips from down in the Dominican Republic. Everything you need. I'm sorry, we are in the best age ever for, well, I think any probably field, but everything you need to do as a landlord, technology has a solution for.
100%. Beyond that, I guess, in the details of it, is there like a people component that you think about as well, like a team of contractors or, you know, your cleaners or vendors in each area?
Oh, yeah.
Or have you, because from just hearing you talk about it, it sounds like you don't have any employees or people on your team, but you're getting stuff done and $20,000 in cash flow. So could you maybe just talk about that? Because I guess the other part that I'll say is people typically think like, oh, I have one property, I need a VA, or I need like a full-time person, or I need a management company that's going to take 25%. So
Right.
would love to just hear, I guess, you know, how you think about the people component of it and how you decided to do it the way that you do it.
Sure. To me, the property manager didn't make sense at first. I started with a house hack, meaning I bought a multifamily, lived in one side, rented out the other. I wasn't going to hire a property manager to go knock on the door in my own building. Like, that just didn't make sense to me. Also, I'm very much of the mindset of you can't teach somebody else to do it properly until you know how to do it yourself. So to me, it was, okay, we need to start taking on the responsibility and be landlords. And house hacking, I think, was a great introduction for us on how to be landlords. I always tell the story. The first property I bought in this duplex, there was a couple that lived upstairs, and the girl actually had one of the extra bedrooms as her full closet. Tons of clothes, tons of stuff, right? And she probably was there for like 3 days. We'd owned the house for like 3 days, and she called me and was like, hey, the closet rod broke. I need a new one. And part of me was like, well, is this my responsibility as the landlord? Did I not give her a closet rod with like the proper structural integrity to like use as a closet rod? Or did this chick just have way too much shit that she put on the closet rod, and now all of a sudden it snapped, and that's really her responsibility? Right? Long story short, in the end, I just bought her a new closet rod for $20. But I started to realize that there were a lot of these decisions that were going to be kind of in that gray space that we were going to have to decide, right? So from that very point, I started managing that one rental property as if I owned 20. I started to make sure that I had digitized files for everything. I had all my pictures, so that way if I had a tenant move out, I was able to do a listing really easily before they even left the property because I had all my pictures of the space vacant, right? I was able to make sure that I kept files with my tax returns, with W-2s, pay stubs, all that. So when I bought a new property, I was able to get that over to my lender really fast, right? So I started to kind of really use different storage systems I could to make sure that I had a different file really for each property, each sets of tenants. Okay, I need to find a lease. If you have a property that you rented out, and you are like, oh, wait, I have a tenant, I don't know how to screen them. Or, oh my God, I now found a tenant that I want to approve, but I don't know where to get a lease. You are doing this backwards because you spend so much time searching around, looking around, figuring out how to put those things together. Meanwhile, I just go to my Google Drive and I'm like, here's my lease template for this county. Here's my lease template for that county. Okay, now we're done. Makes it
100%.
easier.
What do you recommend for people? Do you have a preference in either direction? Do you recommend people do it the way you do it? You know, is it situational? How do you think about that?
For me, people need to do things in the way that they're actually going to do them, right? It comes same thing to one of the questions I get. I'm sure you probably get this too. Is like, oh, when's the best time to either post online or to drop a podcast episode? The time you do it is the best time. That's always. I would rather somebody say, hey, I'm going to drop the episode, you know, on Saturday mornings. But every single Saturday morning, then like, oh, I did that 1 week, but then I'll do it again in 3 weeks, and then maybe I'll do it next month. Whatever way you're going to actually follow through and do it is always the best way. I am a Excel nerd. I like those things. I am very big with if it doesn't exist, let's create it. Those things work for me. So I don't expect everybody to follow the same systems that I would have because that's just not what's going to fit into their life. If somebody else wants a property manager, that's fine, but they have to understand you still have to manage a manager.
Yep, 100%. Not really like a real estate question. Sometimes, you know, in this podcast, it's a lot of content creators and people that have spanned businesses in different directions too.
Yeah.
I'm curious, just like, you know, like one content creator and like, you know, service business person to another, with your audience and with like what you've done with your group, have you thought about ever expanding into different verticals, like starting a property management company or some type of like verticalized company for your like audience, in addition to like doing deals and masterminds and things like that? Just always curious how people's audiences think about it.
Yeah, I absolutely have. I feel like when I started Lady Landlords, I had a lot more product offerings, right, or a lot more service offerings. I feel like there were a lot more things that like I kind of offered, and then I feel like I got very bogged down because I complicated my admin side of things. Because now it was like, wait, which person's in which program? Wait, but which one did I just promote? But, oh, I'm supposed to have this thing on this day, but this thing on this day. How do I send, like, multiple emails about different things? I feel like it just got really, like, complicated for me. And that I kind of got to a space where I'm like, I want to be really, really good at the one thing that I do. And I want to be known for what that thing is. And I want to stay in my space where I can maybe do less marketing because people know, like I'm usually known for buying in high cost of living competitive markets, right? Most of my mentees come to me from New York, Florida, California. You know, I'm not really getting a lot of people in middle America because that's just not what I'm known for. That just makes sense to me. Also, to be honest, the other times like I've thought about bringing back some of those other offerings or expanding into other arenas, I got into real estate investing because I wanted a quality of life. I want to go live on a beach. I want to be able to do that. Normally, actually, Jonathan, the reason you and I are recording a podcast later in the day, not just from your time zone, but it's also when I live in the Dominican Republic, I don't take calls between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. because I go to the beach in the middle of the day. And you could be like, no, Becky, but like, I'm going to pay you a ton of money to come on this podcast. I'm like, cool, I'll talk to you at 6. To me, my real estate portfolio covers the monies that I need to live the lifestyle that makes me happy enough. I'm not looking to own all the property. I'm not looking to make all of the money. I value my lifestyle.
100%. On the back end of that too, like again, these are just even like friend to friend questions I think about too with like my business. So do you think about, you've cash flow from the real estate. One thing I actually do want to talk about with you, because you spend time out of the country, is like cost of lifestyle, and I'm curious how it compares. For me, you know, there's a difference, but so, you know, you have the real estate and it generates a nice amount of cash flow. Is your plan or goals to keep generating cash flow? You have, you know, the masterminds, digital products, coaching offers, to keep taking that cash and put it into more deals? Or are you at the point deal wise where you're like, another door is another headache. I don't need it. Like, I'm good with that. It's just, you know, I want more security. Like, because I think about it too. I'm like, if I'm making more cash flow from my bookkeeping business, or if I ever, you know, do an offer of some type, I'm like, what am I going to do with that money? Is it real estate, index funds? Am I just going to look at it? Like, what am I doing it for? So I'm just curious how you think about it.
So right now I have 16 doors. I will probably end up, if I want to keep my husband, I will probably end up around 20 doors. That's probably the maximum that I think I'd kind of go with. My husband and I are a very good cop, bad cop. He is also he does a little bit more of the, like, initial, like, he's the first person, if we have a maintenance request, he's probably going to be the one that's going to change his schedule and kind of go out and like do that. So I think that's why, like, he's kind of, I can't tell you, Jonathan, how many times he's like, okay, that's it. After this property, we're going to like take a break. And I'm like, yeah, totally. And then like 6 months later, I'm like, so we have an accepted offer. And he's like, on what? And I'm like, don't worry about it. So probably around 20 properties. So for example, one of the other places I do want to park money is in a property in Europe. I used to live in Spain. I lived there for about 5 years, also moved into Portugal for a little while back in my 20s. I will probably buy, and then like I said, right now I'm spending 4 to 6 weeks in Europe. The goal is to really get to 2 months consistently there. So with that, having a property that's going to be kind of my base in Europe is probably one of my next purchases. So park some money there, Airbnb it out when I'm not there, just like I do with my property in the Dominican Republic. Otherwise, diversification. Like I said, I'm not looking to own all of the property. I will probably more get into a space. We do private lending as well. We will probably continue to do that, maybe even grow that side. I've invested into syndications, probably expand there. But otherwise, I don't really have an answer for what other places I'll venture into. But no, you will never hear me. When we do another podcast in 5 years, I will not be saying I now own 50 properties. I can guarantee you that much.
Well, then we're going to have to do a part 3 at some point. Maybe not 5 years from now. We could do it shorter, but we can monitor that. So one thing I'm hearing you say is you're buying real estate in different parts of the world. Some people might be wondering, like, is it a lifestyle play, diversification play? Is it just the investment is really good? How do you think about it? Is it all of the above, or one of those 3 kind of stand out more?
No, lifestyle, absolutely. I personally would not buy in Punta Cana again. I wouldn't.
How come?
One, the area is just growing so rapidly. So I feel like this is going to become a problem. Right now, Punta Cana you go to for the beaches, right? That is the entire point of going to that area. It is the largest touristic space in the Dominican Republic, like 8 times as many tourists go there as like any other place in the entire island. Within Punta Cana itself, there's clearly only a limited amount of beachfront space, right? Who's on beachfront? Most of the time, you have your all-inclusive hotels, larger organizations, big hotels, that type of thing. There are some complexes. The complex that I actually live in is on the beachfront. I literally walk out of my condo and walk to my beach in an interior space, no shoes, no cover up, and I walk to my beach club and they give me my own lounge chair and I get my own beach boy, right? Perfect scenario for me.
So cool.
Yes, thank you. I worked really, really hard for that, and I think it's amazingly cool, and I love it. So thank you for recognizing that. But there's only a limited amount of beach space. So now what they're starting to do is they're building more spaces off the beach and kind of like going farther inland from that. Problem with that is my spot, which is beachfront, who do I have to compete with? I have to compete with the all-inclusive hotels. Why do you go to an all-inclusive hotel?
I don't go to them, so I don't actually know.
No? Most people, the answer is how easy it is, because it's kind of like a one-stop, right? They pick you up at the airport, they take you to the hotel, you don't even need to break out your wallet the entire time you're there. Or 2, alcohol. Drinks are included, right? Drinks, food, everything like that is already included in all-inclusive. So now you stay at my Airbnb, fantastic, you're beachfront, you got a beach club, but have fun getting to the grocery store and go home and get to cook your meals. So how can my price point for an Airbnb compete with the all-inclusive hotels, right? So I've done things like including airport transfers. You can have a chef for the week. We can give vouchers for some of the local restaurants. So that way it's kind of like an all-inclusive, but you actually get off kind of the big resort, right? Which sounds like also is not your thing. So kind of you would be like my ideal client there. Or you're on the other side where you're saying, well, let me go inland a little bit more. And who are the people staying there? Usually the people that are looking for a deal. If you're flying to a tropical island and you are not staying on the beach, you are looking to save some dollars, right? Yeah. But now you have thousands and thousands and thousands of apartments that were all sold to tourists like us. Hey, look, you can own your own piece of property down here in the Dominican Republic and just Airbnb it when you're not here. Great. Who is staying in these millions of apartments in the middle of the jungle, nowhere near the actual beach in a tropical island? Right? So now you're competing with all these other people that have these vacancies for these lower priced places. So the name of the game there is be cheaper than your neighbor. That doesn't sound like fun.
Yeah, just chasing the bottom.
Right, and that's, my goal in life is to make the most amount of money with the least amount of properties. So to me, I'm not looking to play the game of how can I be cheaper than the person next to me.
Got it. So in that specific case, and again, some of this is because I'm thinking, buying stuff in Colombia, but also just interesting buying stuff in different places. Yeah. So with that specific property, is your thought on keeping it, well, it's, I use it, so I need a place to live, so I don't care if I'm maybe making or not making as much as I thought in those other months, or would you consider, selling it and swapping it and then just renting something from one of those other cheaper, price droppers the time that you want to go?
No, first off, for that question, no. I'm a beach snob. So no, I am beachfront or I'm not going. So no, I absolutely am not going to do that. I would upgrade to another unit if it fit like a reason for me to want more space, right? Right now I have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. I'm able to have one of those rooms as my office. I can have guests. I can have my friend's family come down. They could stay in that other guest room. Otherwise, I'm perfectly fine. Also, the other thing that I do that I think was really smart is since I bought a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and since I lived there half the year, I actually rent it out as a 1-bed, 1-bath. So I actually put all of my belongings, I walk into it, and my unit has my toothbrush and my toothbrush holder, my bathing suits hanging up in the closet, right? So I can actually rent my place, but since a 2-bedroom in my complex is a larger space and has a larger dining room and a larger living room, I can rent my place as an oversized 1-bedroom, which sounds much better than a regular 1-bedroom. So I can actually get a premium for a 1-bedroom, but then I don't have to worry about my sheets, cleaning out my closets. Like I said, I have everything in my bathroom that I need. But going back to what you're saying about kind of buying abroad, for any of your listeners too, like this might be kind of useful. I wanted to buy back in this exact complex down in 2021. The complex I was in when we actually had Zoomed back then was the complex that I fell in love with and decided I want to buy there. Back then in 2021, a 1-bedroom condo cost about $200,000. I wanted to buy that. I put in a couple offers on places, but it just didn't work out, right? I'm actually happy it didn't. Instead, my husband and I took that same $200,000, right? Cash, right? Cash is king anywhere in the world. Took that $200,000 cash, came back to New York, used it as a down payment on a $1 million building in Yonkers, New York, took all that cash flow, and then went back and bought the 2-bedroom. Now we were in a place where you didn't have to worry about it covering itself. If we had bought that property back then and used that cash, $200,000 cash for a $200,000 property, I would have been in a position where I was like, shit, this thing needs to rent because I need to cover my costs, right? Totally. And my cost of living there. And I also knew I was going to live there during high season. So I'm now renting it in low season.
Totally.
Instead, now I was able to take that same $200,000, turn it into $1 million asset, and then take the profits from that. And then that's what I took down and bought my 2-bedroom with. That cost me $320,000 in 2023.
So on that note, I guess, is the reason that you think, clearly it's a good idea, but when you look back and, especially now when you look back at it, but like, a question that I've kind of gone back and forth with myself is like, how long to delay gratification, and take every dollar I have and put it into something that then could pay for my assets and lifestyle versus just like buying the thing eventually that, is like a splurge and not like the thing that has to pencil perfectly on paper. So for you, do you think about it like holistically that, okay, I'm at my like fire number in cash flow from real estate, so now I can make like sillier purchases or not as strategic purchases, but on the way there, is it like, yeah, if I'm weighing, buying something that's more lifestyle-ish versus like I can put 1/5 down and use it as down payment and then it funds that thing, is that the way to go? And part of this is also, I'm wondering, like methodology for recommending to other people too.
So for me, that was how I looked at it. I consider my purchase, the 2-bedroom that I bought in 2023, I consider that kind of FU money, right? I had it from profits from another asset. To me, that just kind of made sense. If it didn't cover its cost from renting it out during the low season, I would be fine. I could pay the HOA fees. I could pay my cable bill for the month I'm not there. I wasn't concerned about that anymore. That to me was a huge peace of mind that I didn't have to have it rented. And it does take a little bit of time to build a book of business. For example, one of the other Airbnbs I was going to buy down there was actually, I cared more about the book of business and buying that than I did the actual unit. But that's what worked for me. I truly love real estate because I think there's so many different ways to make it work and to make it work for different people. Somebody else here might be listening and be like, no, priority for me is moving out of the States. And I want to go live in a foreign country. So you know what? And I want to go live on the beach and I want to never see snow again. And if that's you, then you can make that choice, but you have to understand the consequences of it. You might not be able to scale as fast, right? For me, it was delayed gratification because I knew that I would be able to be in a better financial situation. I knew that I was going to feel better with the security. My husband is not a risk taker like me, and I didn't want to hear it for the rest of my life if this did not go well. So 2 years gratification, like delayed gratification, just made sense to go down from that secure place. We got a better unit closer in our complex to the beachfront as well. Now I get to be in the front of the complex, not the back of the complex. So did it work out? Yes. Would other people have been like, no, I would just want to go there, I'll buy the cheap stuff in the back, just so I can actually get down there? Yeah, and that's perfectly fine. But just understand that there's consequences to every action.
Yep, 100%. It's situational, but I think, like, and you probably see this with students all the time, it's about, like, knowing what you want enough to then decide what sacrifices you want to make and
Right.
be able to live with yourself. Like, I still have so many friends in corporate that it's like
Yeah.
they want both, but they don't want it enough, and they resent themselves for not doing the thing, and
Right.
like stacking up these costs, but clearly not enough to like do the thing, So like you decided, and like now you
Right.
can see it more clearly, and other people too.
But to be honest, like I would be a horrible friend in that situation because when I have, it's like the girlfriends that always complain about like the guys that they're dating, and I'm like, okay, it's been 6 years. You can no longer tell me he's not a good boyfriend because if you're not willing to make a change, if you're not willing to do something different, stop telling me you hate the job. If you're not going to do anything to actually go after and make a change.
Totally.
So I feel like
100%.
my friend circle has definitely changed since I left when I quit my job back in my early 20s to move to Spain. I lost a ton of friends there. I came back 6 years later. I was a completely different person. We always used to go to this one bar down in Manhattan. I remember like walking back, and it was like all the people I was friends with, they were sitting at the same tables and the same bar stools. They all had the same jobs, and they were like, "What's new with you?" And I'm like, do you know what I've done over the past 6 years? Like, I'm an entirely different person. And they're like, no, I'm still that same job. Yup, I'm still with that same guy. And I'm like, okay, new set of friends from there. Got into real estate. Friends change there again. And to me, that's growth. And that's okay if there's friends absolutely that transcend those differences. But to me, when I hear people that like complaining years and years later about how much they hate their job or how much they want to be able to do these things, but they're not taking any action to change it, I got to be honest, you're probably not going to be in my circle very long.
Is that like part of, I guess, it's definitely part of your brand because you're doing it, but is that also like part of any strategies or like tactics that you talk to students about of like, hey, you're in New York, it's miserable in the winter, like, and again, I want to come back to this, and maybe you could address it here, like the cost of living in DR, like I know what it is in Colombia, it's cheaper in a lot of other places, but like,
Yeah.
just, is that part of also like what people are interested in, what you talk about, that like you can have lifestyle design and you don't have to be like trapped in one place and cost be a certain way and all that with assets that cover it?
A lot of my mentees are in a similar place where I was, where like we were always the odd man out, that like we were always the one that was just crazy for thinking about moving abroad, or that's like, what a crazy idea to like, what do you mean you're going to quit your job? When I told people that I was quitting a six-figure salary in cancer research and moving to Spain, the questions I got, what are you going to do for work? But how are you going to pay for taxes? What are you going to do for medical insurance? But Becky, you don't actually speak Spanish.
That's the biggest.
Like all these, and I was like, I don't know. I already bought the plane ticket. I already gave up my apartment in Manhattan. I'm going. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And I feel like over time I realized that there was actually more people like me, but I'm not going to meet the people that want to live outside of a cubicle in a cubicle. You actually have to get out there and kind of see the world.
So good. I am curious. I asked, like, touched on it a few times. How is the cost of like lifestyle cost comparatively to New York in Punta Cana?
So very much, however you decide that you want your lifestyle to actually be. In Punta Cana, I can absolutely live on the same budget you would have to in New York, right? If you want to go out to some of the nicer restaurants, you want to get a steak, you want to live beachfront, a beachfront condo, like in my complex, a one bedroom that wouldn't even include utilities, you're looking at about $4,000 for a month. So, that's kind of New York City prices right there. Grocery stores, you have to remember everything's imported. And also, not only are groceries expensive, but some of the groceries you might not be able to get. There's one grocery store that I hate. It's right by my complex, too. You can go there, and on a different day of the week, they're like, no, actually, we don't have any chicken today. We only have pork. And you're like, okay, when are we getting chicken? I don't know, sometime next week. Then, like, you'll go back and be like, oh, I want that, that brand of tomato sauce I really like. You go back, no, sorry, we didn't get a shipment yet. I don't know, maybe it'll be on the boat next week. And it's so hard sometimes when you're like going to make like a recipe and you're like, but none of the groceries are actually here. You can absolutely live much cheaper if you so chose to, but otherwise, drinks, A beer going to be a little bit cheaper. You're going to find, but it really depends if you want to eat if you're eating in a touristy spot. Most of Punta Cana is snowbird retired Canadians. So you're not really, that's changing the absolute prices in the area of Punta Cana. You can go 15 minutes away of Punta Cana and you can get an apartment for under $1,000 without a problem. But are you living in a place that you're going to feel as safe in? Are you going to live in a place that's going to be near a beach? Are you going to live in a place that's going to have such nice amenities? Maybe not.
100%. When you think about, I guess, like where you spend your time now, I guess, yeah, how do you think about it? You're retired, but you have things to do in your business, if it's content, if it's real estate, like, I don't know if you count how many hours a week you work or think about like what are the main activities that you have to do, but how do you think about that, like as far as like planning or knowing what you have to do, or, I get the feeling you're not maybe as like, we need to hit this goal by this time, as you might have used to be, or maybe used to be. But I'm just curious because you're still getting stuff done, and
Right.
You have a lot going on.
I think the balance between being in DR and New York is kind of different. I feel like even when I land in New York, the second like the plane like stops, it's all of a sudden like, wait, you got to rush and compete to get off the plane. You got to rush to get through immigration the fastest you can. You got to rush to either go find your Uber or the fastest taxi to get like into the city. I feel like when I'm in New York, I work more naturally. It's just the thing to kind of do. I would not live in New York if it wasn't for my husband. Even though my husband's from the Dominican Republic, he loves New York. This is the epitome of the American dream. He wants to be here. If I was not married to him, I would not even be in the States. Definitely not in New York. Let's get that clear.
Yeah.
But also he wouldn't necessarily want to go back to DR, but that was more of me saying it. But I feel like I probably spend my few months when I'm in New York during the summer, and I feel like that's a little bit more of a time when I kind of keep more office structure. I still am building my business. I love growing Lady Landlords. My rule is if it's something that like lights me up and makes me happy, I do it. If I don't like it, I don't do it. Or I end that service, or I change how something's structured because I can. So I still keep that, but I do probably keep more of a routine in New York. The only routine I keep in DR is my beach schedule.
10 to 5, 10 to 6? No.
Yeah, 10 to 5. By 6 o'clock, usually the sun's kind of down. So
I gotcha. I love it. I feel like one of those corporates for asking this, but I'm always curious, especially because it might be different. What do you do for insurance? Do you have global insurance? Do you have insurance in each place? Yeah.
No, so for a long time I took Cobra, right? So when I left my corporate job, I paid for Cobra and took that same insurance and carried that. And that insurance actually does work in other countries. So it's more of something that you have to pay for and then get reimbursed for by submitting it. Okay, fine. So I went with that strategy. And then when Cobra runs out after 18 months, then it just became the idea of having to pay for private insurance. So I pay for my husband and myself, I think it costs us around $24,000 a year.
Gotcha. And is that's just world insurance and it covers you in the US or okay, got it.
Yeah, still same thing as in the United States. You have to make sure that they actually take your insurance. There are places abroad so I have Blue Cross Blue Shield. There are places that just don't take that specific insurance, clearly like a hospital would. So when I go to like the doctor in Punta Cana, I just ask, or the dentist, whatever that may be, I ask there like, hey, do you take a Blue Cross Blue Shield? If they say yes, like I said, I just have to pay for it out of pocket, and then I submit it to, I submit the claim saying, hey, paid out of pocket, and Blue Cross Blue Shield actually pays me back.
Gotcha. I'm just evaluating for myself. I have global insurance with Cigna, and it's good, but in Colombia, actually, the insurance is really cheap and very, it's good. So I think I'll probably just have maybe the global and then the insurance here, or maybe something like for each place, but just always curious, especially people who travel.
I did look into the global Cigna insurance when you posted about it.
Oh, yeah.
And I was asking some questions at it, so I did look into it. I have to say, I feel like the plan just did not have as many needs as a woman might need in insurance. Gotcha. I feel like for a man, I would be a single man, I'd be like, yup, That's a great way to save money, but as a woman, I was like, I have to pay for this, I have to pay for this, I have to pay for this. Don't really know if that's going to work for me.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And then there's some little things I'm still learning. Like in Colombia, I just had my second cavity ever, and I was like, do I do insurance here? And then like I went, it was $50, so I was like, I'll just pay out of pocket. I don't even care, like whatever.
And there are services, same thing in the Dominican Republic. There is kind of that still that like medical hacking where people still will go. A lot of Canadians, once again, in Canada. Sometimes, unfortunately, you could be waiting quite some time to be able to get some services. Down in DR, it's really affordable, especially comparative to the United States. So a lot of people will go down there if they need a hip replacement, a knee replacement, dental work. Trying to get a dentist appointment in Punta Cana, you have to like make your appointment like months in advance because that's not covered. Apparently, Canadian healthcare does not cover dentists. So you have to pay out of pocket for it. So a lot of the Canadians will do all of their dental care because it's so much cheaper in DR. And you have all these dentists from Canada, from the United States that retired and moved to Punta Cana. So like you have English-speaking, kind of American quality, if you will, but down in the Dominican Republic. But you have to make an appointment like months in advance to even get in.
So funny. That's hilarious. Some of that's so similar to Colombia, some of it's very different, but that's cool. Yeah. Just because I know we're winding down here, I feel like the time flew by. But the other thing you mentioned, and I'm like super curious about it myself, I've done it a little, but not at like a consistent way, is private lending. I feel like for a lot of people, that is the goal of like once you get to a level, it's like index funds, private lending, and like just never don't talk to me, But like with private lending, is it something you do consistently? Is it deal by deal with the same group every time? How do you do it?
No, to me it comes more by project. I think the most important thing, I think what I learned between syndications and private lending is it's not always the deal, but it's the person. Right? The person that's kind of running it, the person that's really kind of in charge, because I feel like, one, you actually have to like the person and realize that you're probably going to have to deal with them, but you have to not just evaluate, like, hey, is this deal going to make money, but you also have to evaluate, is this the person that can actually get this deal done? And I think that kind of changed the game. So, and also I feel like I actually do have quite a few people that just kind of, it's like, okay, cool, you're paying me back, but hey, you need this amount of money. Okay, let's just kind of roll it into the next deal. That seems to have worked like rather well. And then I'm still like highly selective with anybody else that I'm going to take on because, like I said, I've seen great deals go completely sideways with the person that doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah, 100%. It is always tough when you're like, do I take my money? Do I roll it? What do I need it for? But like, that's how they do it. That's the game, roll it into the next if you can.
And that's also in Dominican culture. Private lending is actually a rather normal thing. Like not just towards real estate, but for just, hey, I need some money. So it's been very interesting since Lady Landlords, we do attract a lot of Dominican members just because, once again, I live there half the year. My husband's from there. But also that's something that it's just very interesting to see certain cultures that are more used to using private lending than we kind of think of in the United States. I feel like in the United States, I need a loan, I'm going to go to a bank. I'm not going to go talk to my neighbor's, cousin Vinny. And personally, that's not usually the direction I go. But in other cultures, that's a very, very typical thing to be able to do.
That's fascinating. I never think about going to a person for money, ever.
I'll tell you a very fun story really quickly. But when my husband and I first started dating, pretty like early on, when we started to get kind of serious, we went and talked to a financial advisor about not just kind of like how we're blending kind of like households and things like that, but just starting to talk about like finances. And this was before we were investing in real estate, just to figure out what to do with some of the cash that we had on hand because we were both making good money in our careers at that point in time. And my husband's English was not as good as it is now. And I remember we were at an office for Northwestern Mutual, right by Grand Central Station in the heart of Manhattan, one of their like nicest offices. White woman in her, probably mid-50s. And my husband's trying to explain like, oh, yeah, I do this, yeah, I make money. Oh, and what's that other thing I do? Oh, Becky, what do you call it? A loan sharking. And I'm like, no, babe, private lending. He was like, oh, okay. But you could just, like, this woman just lost the color of her face, as a financial advisor to hear somebody explaining that that's what, like, he did. And I'm like, no, it's private lending, but it's just not typical for a lot of Americans.
It's not, but definitely a different cultural thing. But
Yeah.
definitely great. Is that something you're trying to do more of, or just deal by deal?
Yeah, we'll probably move a lot more into that as we're becoming more hands off with properties. To me, once you systemize your rentals, like I said, they don't really take a lot of time to kind of manage, especially when you have longer term tenants and you don't have as much turnover. Honestly, it just makes the world so much easier. So with that, and with probably capping out our portfolio, with another 4 or 5 units, we'll probably start doing a lot more private lending.
I gotcha. Otherwise, your husband might kill you if he's being assigned to more projects. Becky, always so fun catching up. I know you have another call after this. Talk about the best ways for people to get in touch, your community, where they should go, all that.
Sure. For anybody that identifies as female, head over to Facebook and check us out in Lady Landlords. We're a large group there, so just throw Lady Landlords in the search bar and you'll find us there. For anybody else that would like to connect, feel free to find me on Instagram at the Becky Nova. Connect there, send me a message, say hi. Love to meet you. Epic.
Becky, so fun catching up. Just like tactical, directed answers, and it's just always fun to catch up, especially since you're out of the country as well, and not right now, but other times, and it's just cool to hear you do it. But really enjoyed it. Thank you again for coming on. We'll have to not wait 4 years to do another one of these.
Yes.
And go from there. But thanks again, and hope you crush 2025.
Thanks. You too.
All right.